With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
When you wanna grow your list size, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. And when you gotta boost your revenue, pop up like it's hot, hey, pop up like it's hot, pop up like it's hot. Pick your favorite template, you can tailor to your brand. They're MailChimp-erific, you're gonna be a fan. MailChimp your marketing with our new customizable pop-ups.
Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today, I'm going to be talking about something you need to have on your food truck today. Doesn't matter what your menu is, you need this stuff. We're talking about tools and backup equipment. But before we get into that, I want to thank Concession Nation for sponsoring this episode of the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. Concession Nation is a builder in South Florida. They built nearly 4,000 custom mobile kitchens in the last 20 years. They've earned themselves a reputation as being one of the best builders in the U.S., and their designs don't just meet industry standards, they set them. From their transparent proposals, and they detail every piece of equipment they're going to be installing, to the quality of the work, they are a builder y'all need to check out. Just go to concessionnation.com. Let them know that you heard it from the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. So let's talk about those must-have tools. You got to have screwdrivers. Duh. You need the flathead and you need the Phillips. Got to have them. I would have not only the little drills, the automatic screwdrivers, but I would have the ones you're going to manipulate by hand, because you may be into some tight squeezes where you need those, and the big drill is not going to fit. You want an adjustable end wrench. A lot of people call it a crescent wrench, but technically it's an adjustable wrench. You screw that little piece and it makes the mouth wider or smaller. You're also probably going to need to get a socket set. Those are perfect for gas lines and equipment bolts. You want to have pliers, including needle nose pliers. Just have them. You're going to need it. You want to have wire cutters. You want to have electrical tape. Because frayed wires, they show up when you least expect it, and it becomes super annoying. I can't tell you how many times I have changed out plugs on the fly and was glad that I had those tools at hand. You might want to go ahead and carry a multimeter, because if you're plugging into shore power at different places, you don't want to fry all the computers in your equipment, because what you think is one voltage is not. So you want to double check yourself. If you don't know what a multimeter is, look it up on YouTube and learn how to use one. They're super simple pieces of equipment that can literally save you thousands. I know a food truck that's not too far from where we live that just plugged into that 50 amp plug and it fried all of the computers in the refrigeration and the freezers because of the surge. So that means that they learned the very hard way. You need to have a multimeter to check out the voltage and make sure it's what you think it is. Just because it's an approved source doesn't mean that it's wired the way it should be. And then also have a surge protector. So let's talk about some of those other pieces of equipment that you want to have so that you're not being, like I read this one yesterday, drove me crazy. Food truck who's very popular, very, very good about letting people know when and where they're going to be, has to put up, we're having propane issues. We're not going to be able to open today. So what does that mean? How can you fix those kind of issues on the fly? Propane's dangerous, but there are things you can do to help yourself out. So let's talk about just some generic things you want to carry with you. Amazingly, a lot of people, we've seen it in our Facebook group and on other Facebook groups, will post a video with their water spitting and sputtering and pulsing and asking, what's going on? What do I do? Most of the time, they got to replace their water pump. Most of the time, actually all the time, they don't have a backup water pump. The two most common pieces that fail are on-demand water heaters and water pumps. Why do they fail? Because we don't treat them right. Water pumps have to have water in them. Otherwise, you will mess them up very quickly. So if you have forgotten or the water's gotten low and you're still letting that thing run and it's pulsing and spitting and sputtering, it doesn't have good water, doesn't have enough water to push it. And eventually you will mess up the gaskets and little rubber pieces inside of it to where they won't work when you do have water. Happens very frequently. The other issue that you should have a backup for is, especially if you have on-demand hot water, is to have one of those on-demand hot waters that you can replace super quick. And why do those fail frequently? A lot of them require you to turn them on and off when you need them, because they have to have water going through them to heat the water. So if there's no water going through them, you have the heating element heating with nothing to help it kind of cool itself off. So it just overheats and burns out. So if you have a little switch, and typically when a good builder puts one of these switches in, it'll be a lit switch. So you can look at it at a glance and go, yes, it's on. No, it's not on. So when you go to do the on-demand hot water, you turn on the water, then you flip the switch, and within a few seconds, because it's on demand, it gets hot. Now, of course, that depends upon the pressure that you're using, because if you turn it on full blast, it cannot keep up with that. That's too much water running through it. So you got to learn at what setting to have the water running through so it gets hot. Hot enough to wash your hands, hot enough to wash your dishes. But those things burn out frequently. I've burnt them out. And I know better. And you get mad when you burn it out and realize, oh crap, I don't have a backup. So a water pump should only be a couple of screws that are holding it to the wall or to the floor, and it should be an inlet and an outlet. You should have the tools to be able to replace it within minutes. So have that backup water pump. It's only $100 at most. Same with the on-demand hot water systems. Have a backup, $150. Have it there, because I'd rather have that $150 sitting, knowing that if my water goes out, I can fix it within a few minutes and not have to worry about a random health inspector coming up, gotta close, you have no hot water, can't wash your hands. And I do know people that have had that happen. So you're either going to have a tool to handle the PEX fittings, so something to cut through the old one and then be able to crimp the new one, or if you've got hose clamps, the right kind of tools to fit those hose clamps, or whatever it is, the quick connects or whatever it is you are using to connect those. And you got to have Teflon tape as well. Here's how quickly you can do one of these changes. One of the very first restaurants that I worked for, you guys will know, Rax Restaurants, we used a steamer. So we had this little, basically a hot water tank. It's about an 8-gallon hot water tank directly underneath the counter. And we had a foot pedal. So we'd slice the roast beef. It's coming off the slicer. We'd move it from the slicer to a scale. We weigh it. We move it from the scale to the steamer and use our foot. And it would go psst. And we would steam it for 3 to 5 seconds. Put it on a sandwich, wrap it up, send it out. Okay, so we were producing sandwiches super quick. But very important, that steamer was there to get the meat very, very hot. So when they opened up the sandwich, it would have the steam pouring out of it and have that appetizing flavor. So I go into work one day and it's not working. The steamer did not function properly. So we had to change it. Now we could have just said, oh, sorry, we're not selling roast beef today, which is the name of the company, Rax Roast Beef. So we can't not sell roast beef. Now we had a secondary line that had a full setup of equipment, but it was in an awkward position. So what I did, so it wouldn't mess up our speed of service, is I very quickly disconnected the steamer that was on one side, moved it to our primary position, and reconnected it. It took me about 8 or 9 minutes. The hardest part was lifting the thing with all the water in it. So you've got to have those backup pieces of equipment and understand how to install them and how to install them rapidly. If you got those pieces, you don't mind when something breaks down. Yeah, it's a frustration. Yeah, you got to crawl up underneath the counter and fix something. But it's way better than having to post on social media, oh, sorry, closed for the day, and losing a few hundred, a few thousand in sales. Have that piece of equipment just sitting there as a backup. So what else are you going to need? So let's talk about electrical and propane. We already did the water. You're going to need to have a spare gas regulator. And you might want to have at least one high pressure hose that you can replace in and out. Leaks are going to happen in those hoses, especially if you have the flexible hoses that a lot of places still let you have and still let you use. If you got 3 or 4 pieces of equipment that are being fed from the propane manifold through those flexible pipes, you might want to have a backup flexible pipe. Makes sense. Rather than you come in and smell propane and go, crap, gotta leave the door open, gotta vent the propane out, gotta figure out where the leak is, but I don't have anything to fix it with, so now I just need to take the thing home. But if you got the backup pipe, you're back in operation within a few minutes, rather than losing a whole day's worth of sales. You're going to want to have a backup GFCI adapter for when the event power just isn't reliable. Like I talked about earlier, having that surge protection so you don't lose the computers that are in pretty much everything. You may want to have a small backup inverter generator. Now, most people go for the big one. We got to have this 9500 Predator or the 16,000, 15,000 watt Westinghouse or any of those other big ones that are being made, the Duramax one. But what happens when the thing won't start? What happens if you can't replace whatever needs to be replaced on it quickly? Have a small backup generator. I'm not saying to buy a second 9500. You may just get a 2,000 watt one. Modify how you operate for the day and work off of that one. Yeah, it's going to be hot. You're not going to run your AC off of it, but you could keep your refrigeration going so you can sell something. You could keep your hot water tank going so the health department doesn't get upset with you. Again, it depends on how your overall operation is set up. If it makes sense, then you could get through a day working with 2,000 watts, then have that small backup generator. Have it to help yourself. How about a spare POS tablet? You guys know I like Easy Eats, and I want you to use Easy Eats. Easy Eats is not locked into a specific tablet. You can put it on your phone. You can put it on every tablet you can find in your house. We have Easy Eats on... I'm sitting in the food truck right now as I record it. I have a small tablet for the POS. I have 1, 2, 3 other tablets. I've also got my cell phone. When Melissa is with me, she has the work phone and she has her personal cell phone. All of those have Easy Eats on them as well. Doesn't cost me 1 penny extra. So I've got ways to ring stuff up. I've got KDS systems. Have yourself that backup. And while we're talking about POS systems, have yourself a backup for internet connectivity. We have 3 different ways where we're at to connect to the internet. You guys know that we set up in an RV park, so the RV park has internet. We can connect to it. It's highly unreliable, but it is there. And it works pretty good for credit cards transactions because those don't have graphics and videos that need to be downloaded. We obviously have our cell phones, but we also use T-Mobile's little tower for internet. So we have 3 different ways to connect. I'm in the food truck. I have a Square POS. I use that to process credit cards because I have a really good rate with them. But Square fails. We know that from time to time. I have Zettel. I have a little tiny Zettel so I can ring up immediately. I've had Square fail and within just less than a minute had my Zettel, which is PayPal, had it up and ready to go, and the guest never knew, other than I'm using a different way to process the credit card, that I had an issue. And actually right now, today, I've got 2 different Zettels because I'm taking one with me to Las Vegas. And I'm going to leave the Square here so Melissa can run the food truck while I'm in Las Vegas. So I can still sell my books with my PayPal, and Melissa will be here running the food truck using Square. I can also use Stripe. Have that on my computer that I'm recording this podcast on. I got 3 ways to connect to make and take payments. You got to have backups. Got to. How about other things that you may need? Fryer gaskets, water heater seals, faucet O-rings. How about freshwater filters if you use them? You may want to have duct tape, aluminum tape. You may want to have zip ties. Definitely want to have food safe lubricant. You want to have WD-40. So where should you start making your little list? Think about the one part that if it fails, you can open, and then stockpile that part. Again, the 2 most frequent things that fail are water related. The hot water system or the water pump. Make your life easy. You want to make sure that you got the backups and you got the tools to perform those backups. I told you I'm sitting in the food truck as I record this. I have 2 toolboxes in my food truck. One is a big toolbox that's got a lot of PEX fittings and some short pipes. So if a pipe breaks, I can very quickly, because it's already pre-cut, but I've also got a cutter in there. I've got the big pair of pliers that will cut through the PEX fittings so I can pull off the old one and put a new one on. And I've got every size that I need. This particular food truck that we're on, I'm looking at the build around me. I can see 10 millimeter hex head screws, but I also see Phillips. And then as I look around, I see what essentially is a triple square. Triple square is not something a lot of people use. And I didn't have a triple square fitting to pull off these screws that are holding my water pump to the floor as well as the hot water tank to the wall. So I had to go buy this triple square screwdriver, essentially, to be able to pull those off. So look around. Look for those oddities that your builder used that you don't have, because I can guarantee you they've used something you don't have. How about the rivets? You may have to drill out a rivet. Do you have the right size drill bit? Do you have a drill? Because when you're out on site somewhere, you can't just run to Lowe's and buy something. So create your little toolbox. Create those backup fittings. Create those backup pieces of equipment that you know at some point you're going to need. I want to remind you guys, I'm going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada this year on July 15th and 16th. That's 2025 as a part of the Food Truck Owners Expo. I'm going to be giving a couple of classes. I'm going to be out on the main expo floor where you guys can come and join us in our National Street Food Vendors Association booth. Hang out with us and just have a great time at the Rio in Las Vegas, Nevada. If you'd like to buy some tickets, go to FTOexpo.com, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. Until next time, you guys have a profitable day.